Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. You're welcome to Talk Time this beautiful Saturday morning. We give God the glory for His mercies upon our life. Today is the 18th day in the month of May, the year 2024. All right, then, so the fifth month of the year is revving up its engines, accelerating past the midpoint now, and of course, heading towards the last bend. You're welcome. It's going to be another great day, and today we're going to be having another conversation of serious concern. Across the world right now, climate change seems to be holding sway, especially as it relates to flooding. From Brazil through Dubai, even Kenya in Africa, and so many other parts of the world, we're having a heavy downpour taking over communities, leading to loss of lives. All right. Apart from that, we're also having issues that relates to shortage of food production. We are having extreme weather conditions that are affecting people. All these are consequences of climate change, and we're going to be reflecting on that from the viewpoint of a specialist who's been there and who will be giving us the recipe that we need to adopt in order for Nigeria to be immune from the effects of climate change. You're welcome. Victor Oteri is my name. Traffic-wise, most of the areas we're covering still looking pretty good this morning. If you head into the island, I can tell you the Third Mainland Bridge is very, very good. Very cool and calm. Ikorodu Road as well is receiving with good vehicular flow. Lagos Abeokuta Expressway, not bad at all, but we are still monitoring that impediment on Oteri. That's if you're heading out towards Lagos. We have a broken down articulated vehicle there. It's a tanker, by the way, and I understand it's carrying diesel. Yeah, spilled some of its content, and the traffic managers are trying to see how they can remedy the situation. And so we're advising those of you trying to connect the Lausa end or perhaps the Secretariat from the Oteri having it pretty slow. I understand you do not have access through that corridor. But if you want to connect with Lagos Ibadan Expressway, as you make that journey from this end, you're advised to drive through CMD Road, and from there you can connect Beja to proceed on your journey. Okay, so CMD Road, from there connect to Oteri towards Beja, and you can head out towards Lagos. Most other areas still looking very, very good. We'll be giving you more helpings as they come in. But right now, let's switch gears and focus the conversation this morning, because we're trying in our own little way to stem the tide of climate change in a developing economy like Nigeria. And joining me on the phone line right now, Dr. Victor Ayodeji Fodeke is a Hubert, Humphrey, Ashoha Fellow. Of course, he's co-founder of the Greenplinth Africa Limited, and of course, former technical advisor on climate change at the African Union Commission in Addis, Ababa, Ethiopia. Well, my guest, I can tell you, is an environmentalist of repute. He has a specialist interest in water quality, marine environmental protection, as well as he is a social entrepreneur. It's nice to have Dr. Victor Ayodeji Fodeke. He's joining us on the phone line this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Victor, and the distinguished listeners of this program.
Right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful. Dr. Fodeke, we have been on this route before, sermonizing through the wilderness of advocacy for us to imbibe best practices in environmental sustainability. So, as a specialist in this field, how would you describe our performance in the areas of climate change mitigation? So far, so good.
Yeah, I think the background of this is to say that Nigeria has really taken the lead of climate change adaptation and mitigation through the recently enactment of legislation that set up the National Climate Change Commission or Climate Council.
Okay.
Under the Director General, Dr. Salisu Dahiru. That has really put teeth to whatever policies we have in place by backing it with enabling legislation.
So, meaning that Nigeria is traveling in the right direction?
Very right direction.
Well, for those who are not very conversant with what we are talking about this morning, Dr. Fodeke, I just wanted to take some little time to explain to us the concept of climate change and its ravaging effects on us.
Thank you very much. This is a topic I believe that I would like to break down in a non-technical manner so that every one of us leaving no one behind in understanding climate change, the opportunities there, the crisis there, and where we stand. Let us look at the whole solar system as created by Almighty God.
Right.
I don't believe in evolution. I believe in creation by Almighty God in the planetary system. In all the planets that we have, Nigeria is the only planet that life can exist on it.
That's the Earth,
All the
right?
other ones,
The Earth.
all the other planets, they are too cold to sustain any life.
Right.
Minus hundreds of degrees. So, Africa, that is, the Earth is very unique.
Right.
Because in the creation of God, there is a blanket that God has created made up of some gases that all the other planets, when the sun shines on them, all the energy from the sun is reflected back to the cosmic atmosphere. But the Earth is the only planet that has a blanket of some gases that are known as greenhouse gases, notably about 6 of them.
Okay.
You have carbon, you have nitrogen, you have methane, you have water vapor. All these sort of gases are classified as greenhouse gases that form a blanket that traps the heat from the sun from escaping totally to the atmosphere, and that is what traps that heat to keep it warm.
Okay.
But when man discovered sources of energy like coal, like fossil fuel, we started increasing the level of this blanket. You know, when you put a thick blanket over you, you know how you will sweat.
That's right.
The Earth is presently sweating from the impact of man. Man is responsible for loading this layer of gases known as greenhouse gases that is trapping the heat from the sun and is making the Earth warmer and warmer. And that is why you have the consequences of sea level rise. You have this desertification, you have this food security issue, because when the heat is not allowed to escape and
Right.
it is increasing and it's becoming thicker, the moisture in the topsoil gets drier. The Sahara Desert is moving in at about 0.4 kilometers every year. Every place is becoming very arid. You cannot get the maximum from the soil again.
Right.
The same thing with the sea level rise from the coastal Nigeria. The north, we have the Sahara Desert. We have all these implications from the global, from the North Pole and South Pole. More water is moving into the oceans and all the rest, and it is rising about nearly a kilometer every sort of 100 years.
Which is very, very correct, Doctor. So, but how do we now tell that market woman in Mushi, the butcher in Katangura, the spare parts seller in Unewi, and even the palm oil seller in a place like Kodabasi, that the climate is changing? How do we make him realize that?
Everyone realizes now that this year is the hottest year we can really imagine. This year, 2024, is the hottest that we have ever known. They can know the impact of it is that the activities of human beings, everybody has a footprint of your activity. The use of generators, the cutting down of trees is even number one, because cutting down trees for cooking is responsible for about 85% of deforestation in Nigeria today. And when you cut down the trees, you cut down the sink of the carbon, because the trees sink the carbon and the earth can be cooler. Today, we find out that most of the areas have been deforested and they need to be reforested, and we need to forest them very well, because that is the sink. Now, when we contribute our activities, that is our footprint in terms of loading our atmosphere with these greenhouse gases. Because unless we do something seriously about it, sub-Saharan Africa, in which West Africa is there, is the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. The impact is higher than all other parts of the world. That is why we should be taking the lead in adaptation and mitigation, because in climate change, you either adapt or you mitigate, or make both as your action point.
Right.
In order to solve this problem, there is a need to have good financial basis and technology that will not increase those greenhouse gases.
All right.
That is why the advocacy is on shifting away, according to the outcome of COP28,
Right.
to move away from fossil fuel, and so that we can be able to build
on other sources
that
of
is
energy.
not more than 1.5 degrees centigrade.
Right. Dr. Fodeke, we'll come to some of those solutions that we should be deploying in order for us to avert the ravaging effects of climate change. But let's just still dwell a bit on this. So I gave a background earlier on. Last week alone, we had this massive flooding as a result of the heavy downpour in Kenya. Before then, we had that of Brazil. We had that of Dubai. And these are countries one would never have expected could receive massive flooding of that nature. In Nigeria, we've not really seen the rains, even though NIMET has predicted that over 33 states are likely going to have massive rainfall this year. Are we likely going to be having this kind of situation as seen in places like Kenya, even Afghanistan and others? Are we likely going to see that here in Nigeria?
You should expect more. I'm not a prophet of doom, but it's a result of consequences. This is the age of consequences. When we load the atmosphere with these gases and the earth gets warmer, it means that the earth is sweating. The earth is heating up, and the consequences are what we are seeing right now. Because it takes about 50 years for any action you take right now to be very effective. The temperature right now of the earth has moved beyond it has moved beyond the tipping point. That is why the ocean is getting warmer. You are loading the atmosphere with more water vapor. So rain will fall more in places even where there have not been heavy rainfall, like Dubai, like in some of the areas like you have in Brazil and all the rest there. In Pakistan, it was almost the whole country was almost inundated.
Right.
This is as a result of the consequences of our loading the atmosphere with our carbon-intensive activities. We are daily doing that by the choice we use in terms of what we power our system to make our life livable. We need to move in the trajectory that will not load the atmosphere with these greenhouse gases. When you hear of GHG, it means that greenhouse gases, those gases that when you put inside a place that you are farming, you quarantine it, you put some plastic, some so that the heat from the sun is trapped in by that enclosure there, and the heat becomes warmer. Because when you plant things in a greenhouse, the growth gets about more than 2 or 3 times more, because of the growth stimulating hormones and the increase of the activities when it is warmer like that. The whole planet of Earth is like a greenhouse. That's why I call this greenhouse effect.
Right.
It is getting warmer, it's getting hotter. The Earth is sweating. Put it in a very general way, common way. The Earth is sweating right now because there's a thicker blanket that is being promoted, that is due to our activities of releasing these gases by how we get energy for transportation, for cooking. Like Lagos State, in what you are doing right away, 30% of some of these impacts about 30% come from transportation. That is why I'm impressed in what you are doing, Victor. We need to decarbonize the transportation sector in the whole country. Lagos State is already done that, but they already started with that with a very, very robust policy, which I'm impressed about.
We'll get back to that, Dr. Fodeke, but let's talk about other effects now. So we'll be mentioning flood, and I know that flooding is not the only effect, or perhaps it's not the only consequence of climate change. What are the other consequences?
The other consequences, number one, is food security. Food insecurity, because our food system is not secured. When the earth warms up, the implication of it is that the moisture in the topsoil gets vaporized off. And when you don't have water in the topsoil, what do you think is the result? Can plants grow and give you food? What we have is massive famine, hunger, and sort of drought that it took the African Union Commission to set up Africa Risk Capacity Program to be able to help our farmers, to be able to have an insurance program for the failure of the crops. Because even without the drought and the rest there, 60% of what we harvest is lost to post-harvest losses, and which needs to be addressed to. The coastal regions are going to be inundated. Lagos need to be able to have a climate-proven program, because during my research work, I looked at the groundwater contamination by waste leachates. And I found that the hydrogeology of Lagos State is such that we should not be depositing our waste in the soil, because the soil is not rich enough to ameliorate or attenuate the leachates that come from the homes of the shit that we produce and the waste we produce that decomposes and contaminate the aquifer there. So apart from the ocean level rise, we need to climate-proof the structures within our coastal region from Lagos to Calabar. As we build that road from Lagos to Calabar, we should focus on climate-proofing our coastal areas. The northern areas too, we need to have an aggressive, innovative tree planting and nurturing programs, not just planting trees like orphan trees. At Greenplinth Africa Limited, we're championing that. Especially, we need to address the issue of cutting down trees for cooking.
Right.
And that is why at Greenplinth Africa, we have a very innovative, ambitious program to deploy 80 million cook stove free of charge to Nigerians within the next 5 years or 6.
All right.
That is one of the actions to stem the cutting down. You find that in some states. Some state governors approve the cutting down of trees that have been grown over 100 years. They just cut them off and export them, and our borders are so porous, especially that the rosewood, that is very like the king of the woods.
Right.
That is for the trees that are for economic. But I'm talking about cutting down trees for cooking. The impact of cutting down trees for cooking is about 85% deforestation, the sink that is needed for carbon. We have a cook stove now that can reduce this impact by over 90%, known as Panda stove, which has now been endorsed by the federal government.
All right.
We want to make sure that we we reduce the level of the sink for this carbon through cooking.
Let's look
also reduces in indoor air pollution.
All right. Let's look at the current trend.
That is responsible for 135,000 deaths in Nigeria every year.
Which is quite unfortunate. So, Dr. Fodeke, let's look at the current trends now across the world. I know we had COP28 far back in November 2023, and there are lots of arguments even before the end of that particular summit on where we need to go and what countries need to do in order to actualize or perhaps mitigate the effects of climate change. So where are we now? What should we be doing, even as a developing country, to ensure that we can really actualize the outcomes of COP28?
I'm very happy to inform you of the action of Paris Agreement of 2015, that in which countries have committed themselves to intended nationally determined contribution, that is now nationally determined contribution, that has identified sectors in which they need to decarbonize very quickly. Decarbonization means to reduce the level of carbon intensive projects that you have. That means to say that from those sources, from these sectors we have talked about, from waste sector, from petroleum, for energy and all the rest, we need to cut down our use of sources of energy that is carbon intensive to a low carbon one, and to move towards zero carbon by 2060. Countries all over the world have agreed on these targets, and it is very impressive to the leadership of this country, in which energy transition program of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that flagged up a program in Imo State just about 2 days ago on utilization of the gas, which is our energy in transition, to be able to meet our need of energy. You will recall there's a statement, there is a video by the World Bank that talks about the gas that is being flared in Niger Delta country can power the whole of Africa.
Right.
I also want to say that from the sector, that for energy that we know, the oil company that is in Nigeria was commended by UNFCCC a few years ago through the AFAM 6 project that was able, through efficiency strategy, because when you talk about solving this problem, efficiency is about number one,
right,
and about from mitigation. And they were commended with the carbon credit for 10 years, and it was renewed for them. This certificate is there, and Nigeria, I believe, is the first country of an oil company that is utilizing the negative effect of this fossil fuel exploitation to a positive one of generating clean energy. The AFAM 6 program is contributing about 0.6 gigawatt of electricity. This is what UNFCCC did, and it was started when I was the DNA for Nigeria in 2008 to 2010.
Wow.
These are the ways in which Nigeria has actually been in the lead for this. Carbon credit is an instrument that can assist us to mitigate this action, because it is a reward for action that you take to replace carbon-intensive technologies with a low technology that removes or even reduces or that will sink these greenhouse gases.
So do we have an enforcement that can carry that out? Who issues out carbon credit?
There are 3 steps to this process that I have just described. The first phase of it is the measurement. If you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. You'll be able to measure the amount of present greenhouse gases that you are releasing, to give you a baseline to be able to compare when you have the other technology that does not increase it. So if you don't know what is there before, how will you know whether you are increasing it or decreasing it? That's the measurement aspect in which a baseline study is required.
Right.
The second stage is the reporting. That's the 3 processes as MRV is reporting. Nigeria has a designated national authority that actually will report your report, whatever studies you've carried out by a developer. Somebody is paid to develop this project.
Okay.
And when he develops it, he comes out with what was there before and what will be there through the project, that we can see the volumes of GHG that has been reduced, that is calculated, reported to the DNA, and it is verified, the MRV verified by the UNFCCC Executive Board, which converts whatever you have saved in this carbon credit to certified emission reduction unit into United States dollars or whichever currency it is there. But the Executive Board carries out this verification when they employ the designated operating entity to come and verify what the DNA has sent in terms of, after it has been reported to the UNFCCC, we verify through the through the Executive Board. And there's a compliance committee that actually oversees all this. I was in that committee for 8 years.
Wow.
And to see how this thing works. And Nigeria is not lagging behind. We have about 14 projects right now, of which most of it were endorsed by me by the grace of God when I was the DNA. And the present DNA has endorsed that project that is very, very massive, of 80 million cook stove for Nigeria.
So let's get that now. So
the highest in the world.
So by DNA, we mean, what does DNA mean?
Designated National Authority. The focal point for UNFCCC is the DNA, presently by Dr. Salisu Dahiru of the National Climate Change Council.
Which is very, very good. All right, so let's break this down for those who are listening to us at home now. So if we're going to reduce the effects of climate change, if you're going to change our behavior, modify our behavior right from our homes, I just wanted to give me a clinical scenario if we are complying and what we are doing in that regard. So if in my house, I am making use of an inverter, am I on the right track?
Well, let me say generally, we need to have a program of carbon footprint. Everybody must know the carbon footprint of his activity. The impact of your activity every day, how much you are contributing to the greenhouse gases, whether through the use of energy, through the use of technology, your social footprint, environmental footprint, the impact of your activity on the environment, the impact of your activity on the climate. That's what is called carbon footprinting. When you have carbon footprint, ecological footprint, technological footprint, social footprint, the impact you have on the ecosystem, you need to know how to measure it. Instead of you driving your car to work, you may want to make sure that in your estate, all of you use one car instead of using 7 cars. When that activity is quantified like that, you'll be able to benefit what is known as carbon credit on that program. And I believe that Lagos State presently right now, with a lot of very laudable projects that are on ground, there is a need to increase the revenue base of the state so that through this carbon credit project, we can increase the internally generated revenue by tripling it, so as to there are about over 10 gigantic landmark projects to make Lagos State a mega city, so that we can make it a climate smart city, that mega city that is supposed to be, and it's on the right track of it. But the first step of it is be able to measure our carbon footprint of our activities. Government needs to reduce the aspect of using paperwork and other anything you can do to save the climate from the onslaught of attack of greenhouse gases, of increasing that blanket that is causing this impact on climate change that is so intensive, and that is like an onslaught. It's a battle for our soul, in which, as I've mentioned to you, the temperature is getting hotter and hotter. Yeah.
All right, then Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM, we're stemming the tide of climate change in a developing economy like Nigeria. And our guest this morning, Dr. Victor Ayodeji Fodeke, of course, he's speaking to us so eloquently about this. He's co-founder of the Greenplinth Africa Limited, and also is a former technical advisor on climate change at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa. All right, very, very shortly, I'll allow you to also join the conversation, but let's get back to the roads. We did tell you that most of the roads that we're covering very, very good, but we're watching and we're still tracking that impediment around Oteri, where it is very, very slow. A broken down articulated vehicle. It's a diesel tanker, and I understand some people are even driving against the flow of traffic already. We advise them, please do not do that. And the traffic managers are there trying to streamline and ensure that you have access. But we're saying if you're coming from this end, that's from the Alausa end, drive straight through CMD Road. And from there, you can connect Oteri to proceed on your journey if you're heading out towards Lagos. That's the impediment. In fact, there are 2 impediments there. There's another articulated vehicle broken down with iron rods is also affecting the flow of traffic at that end. Beyond that point, all other areas are still very good. Ikorodu Road, not bad at all. And some of the other areas that we're covering, Lagos Abeokuta Expressway, looking good as well. And the other side of town, Lekki Aja, not bad at this time. Okay then, so if you want to ask Dr. Fodeke any question, feel free. 08099120777. That's 08099120777. This program is streamed live on Facebook. That's Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. And on YouTube, it's Traffic Radio 961. So from any part of the world, you can catch us live on this program as well. All right. You can send in your questions too if you want to also join the conversation. All right. So I've got some questions streaming in for you already. Dr. Fodeke, this one says, good morning, Mr. Oteri. I always look forward to your programs. I am curious and I want to know the steps being taken to reduce carbon emissions in Nigeria's transportation sector. This is Emeka Kalu sending this one in. All right. I know that Dr. Fodeke even touched a bit on that, but we'll still dwell on that a bit. This one says, good morning, Traffic Radio. I remember the former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, had plant a tree to save the climate campaign. And I don't know if such an initiative still exists, but what is being done to sensitize the public about the importance of tree planting? This is Oyeniyi Julius is sending that one in. All right, so maybe you want to react to those two contributions so far, Dr. Fodeke?
Yes, I had the first one, but I missed the first one. I mean, I had the second one you said. Now, the first one, I missed it.
Okay, so the first one was talking about the impact. What is Nigeria doing about transportation and carbon emissions?
That's a very good question, because I had mentioned it earlier on that a very aggressive decarbonization program is being embarked upon by focusing on use of compressed natural gas by the government, of which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has already initiated. But beyond that one, as I have mentioned earlier on, that nearly 30% of the greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector. And with reference to Lagos State, there is a need to shift and to make less people to be on the road, because the more vehicles on the road, the more is the increase of the greenhouse gases. So the first aspect of decarbonization is to ensure that there are less vehicles on the road, number two, and there are vehicles that are very efficient. There's a program coming up about a week or two, efficiency of decarbonization of vehicles by treating them through a unique capsule that we put on the program. I'll come to you on that. That when we make sure that the vehicles that are plying on the road right now, the efficiency of compression of the petrol that is being used is being wasted. We don't have more than about 35% efficiency. But by using of that treatment unit that is being said by a group called BB Giza, you'll be able to increase the efficiency of the use of your petroleum product or automotive gas oil to probably around 50, and keep more money in your pocket and save the climate and be able to have a more resilient economy in Lagos State and the whole country.
So what do you make of the compressed natural gas vehicles which the federal government is championing?
Yes, you know that, for your information, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than of fossil fuel. The fossil fuel is just like few drops in the ocean of gas that you have in the natural gas. You have the associated gas that come with the crude oil exploitation, but the natural gas that is being used right now, it is what you see countries like in the UAE and Saudi Arabia and all those countries have transformed their economy. It's a transformative strategy which the president has already flagged off, like what he did in India 2 days ago.
Right.
It is the right way to go when we utilize this as a transition energy source, that we are moving towards phasing it out. But presently what we have is a several trillion cubic liters of this natural gas. The associated gas itself is enough to power Africa, according to a World Bank report. I have that report with me. That says that the gas were flaring because Shell has demonstrated it with the Afam 6 project that I said they're able to put back about 0.6 gigawatt of electricity into Nigeria. We don't have any excuse for talking about power failure in Nigeria.
Right.
We have volumes of sources, even from water itself, hydro itself. Tanzania was just cutting down of their export of energy because they have too much water, because we have over 300 rivers that are good for hydroelectricity and for irrigation, to be able to solve food insecurity and to be able to pump in energy, because the first thing we think of when God created the world is that there be light. So
Right.
we have no excuse. Not to talk about the volume of, that is the wattage of
Of
source
electricity.
energy we have for solar in there.
All right.
And then to talk about the energy from the waste to energy, which is a very huge source for Lagos State to tap into. I can tell you right now that these are abundant sources that we need just to put together a good, innovative plan by think tank, eggheads, that we map out the roadmap, that we timeline and be able to look at the financial implication and the technology that we really need, because that is what God has given us in this country. We
All
don't
right.
have any excuse to
Let,
talk
let me
about
just
power failure.
bring in
Yes.
some other concerns here before we begin to round off the program. This one says, "Happy weekend, Victor, and to your guests." It's a great regards to your guest. Said, "What are the potential social impacts of phasing out fossil fuels in Nigeria?" You didn't put your name, so impacts of phasing out fossil fuel in Nigeria. Then this one says, "Good morning, Traffic Radio. Which regions in Nigeria are most vulnerable to climate change, and what are the specific threats that they face?" This is Rachel sending this one in. I will lose the connection there, but we'll try and get that back. This one says that, "Good morning, Traffic Radio. Does climate change have does climate change have an effect on rising cost of food items?" This is Babs sending this one in. I do not know if Dr. Fodeke is back. Hello, Dr. Fodeke.
Yes,
Okay.
The social impact of phasing out fossil fuel.
Yes.
Well, it was just like this when we were in COP28. I was asking that if the president could just ask everybody for that COP28 that they are phasing out fossil fuel, that everybody should go back to their countries, either riding of camels or trekking or look for donkeys and find their way back, since fossil fuel is the victim, is the bad boy.
So that would take us like 5 or 6 centuries back.
Precisely. So that is why it is in transition. And what we have in transition, we should make sure to be so innovative, we be so pragmatic, we should maximize so that critical infrastructure can be powered by this gas that you have in abundance.
Right. So which regions in Nigeria?
That you have in abundance and all the things we have that are energy in transition.
So which regions in Nigeria are most vulnerable?
Say it again.
Which regions in Nigeria are most vulnerable to climate change? This is Rachel asking this question. Can we just answer that in 30 seconds?
Well, every region in Nigeria is vulnerable. Anywhere that you can have impact, that you are releasing greenhouse gases, anywhere you are cutting down trees right now that you are not planting anyone, anywhere you are planting trees and not nurturing the trees, so you're just planting trees like orphaned trees.
All right. So Babs,
you are a victim.
Yeah. So Babs is saying, does climate change have effect on rising cost of food items in Nigeria?
That is very obvious. You should know that when the land that is supposed to produce maybe 100 tons of foodstuff can no longer produce it, it is producing 5 tons. That's a negative effect on the economy of your pocket, the economy of your stomach, and the economy of your livelihood. It's affecting you.
All right. Let's take this home now, Dr. Victor Fodeke. Even as we round up the program this morning, what's the message and how can we really, really change from our old ways to adapt new skills that would reduce the effect of climate change on us all?
Very simple. Let us decarbonize at the subnational level. And we need to imbibe the principles of carbon finance through this carbon credit thing that at Greenplinth Africa Limited will teach you how to green your internally generated revenue, that you will be able to double, triple, or contribute your IGR from now. You will never have to go back cap in hand to the federal government to look for some bailout.
All right,
because you have all the means to do this.
All right. We'll be looking for some day where you can break this down for us all. And I'm sure that those in government, they are listening. And I hope they will be able to take a cue from that. Dr. Ayodeji, Victor Fodeke, thank you so much for connecting with us this morning.
My pleasure. God bless you all.
Okay.
For Greater Lagos.
All right. So he's a specialist in this particular field. And that is why we have to bring him in to drink from his pool of wealth as it relates to what we can do really to stem the tide of climate change in a developing economy like that of Nigeria. We have to go. The program has been produced by Dayo Anthony. I say a big thank you to Taye Olani, who is working tirelessly behind the scene to ensure that we have this program come to stream. Also on the program, I say a big thank you to Shodunke, that's the Okpayemi Shodunke, and not forgetting Remy Aloko of our social media unit. Maximum thanks to our executive producer Tayo Akonle. My name is Victor Oteri. I'll be back by 10:15 for Maritime Today. Keep it locked on your frequency of attraction and passion, Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM.
Without the roads, there won't be vehicles. Without the roads, there won't be the streetlights. Without the roads, there won't be the need